Do you remember this moment in Auburn basketball history? Well, whether you do or not, we want to take you down memory lane. This is a segment from our latest episode, episode 20 of the Auburn Experience podcast, where we go back 1 year ago to talk about the phenomenon that was Pearlville and the significance that it was for us, but also for Auburn basketball. We're going to go way back, not way back, I shouldn't say that, a year ago, into the time machine and imagine what it was like during a year with Auburn surging, which kind of are right now for men's basketball. But the men's basketball team had just about gotten it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Austin, at this time last year, they were number one or about to be number one.
This time last year, they were playing for it. It was all looking like if they could win that game, they would be number one.
And this little game came up with this team called Kentucky. I mean, you wouldn't know it now because they suck at basketball this season, but they were definitely good last year. Probably are still good to some degree right now. Just giving them a little crap because they need a little bit of that in their lives. Big Blue Nation has had it their way for the longest time in SEC basketball, and it's about time that we all give it back to them a little bit. But last year, this game started coming up, and there became this groundswell of discussions about, wow, this is a big game that's coming up, and we got to do something incredible for this. Like, I mean, what are we going to do to build up to this? I mean, all the students, they normally get out to the game super early and line up all the way through the quads area of some of the newer dorm situations.
Mm-hmm.
And that normally occurs, but there was just something different. I mean, there were discussion of couches being brought in the day before, 2 days before. There were discussions of cold weather coming in. And lo and behold, I'll give some more perspectives to my experience of this, but I want to hear you and what you thought about what became known then as Pearlville right before the Auburn-Kentucky game and leading up to that major matchup and what was a historic time period for Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, it became this kind of thing where it looked like, how early are students going to get out for this kind of game? Because like you said, people would get out hours of the morning for a night game. And it was started to become, okay, that's going to be a 11 a.m. game. How early are they going to get out there? And then it was on the day of the game. And then it was like, well, there's people out there now, and it's the day before the game. So are they going to camp out? And so it kind of just evolved. People started lining up, and then we started to get a little more organization from the university. Be like, okay, we're going to do it this time. You can be out here. And then tents started coming. Everyone's starting to worry about the weather. And then the alumni base, right, from all over, part of #Auburn Twitter, decides to fund all this money or provide all this money to fund hand warmers, food, coffee, materials to keep these kids warm in, sub 30 degree weather as they camp out for this basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
And so Pearlville was born. And just on a cold January day, and all I remember is just I was in grad school at the time, so I was just kind of at home. I just remember seeing all this happen, and different people taking the mantle. Allie Davison, one of them, kind of spearheaded the whole thing. She's been on our Auburn Roots podcast talking about this whole thing. She's kind of spearheading the whole thing of taking up donations and allocating where it goes. Well, Allie lives in Atlanta. And there's all these people, donating money from all over. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing anything. If she'll entrust me to go buy up hand warmers and repay me, then I'll do it. And that's kind of what happened. And so, and we did that. I went up and bought everything they had at Walmart, took it out there. At that point, there were kids selling hand warmers at that point. And I'm like, no, this is free. It's courtesy of all random alumni from around the country. And then the next morning we did the same thing with, I don't remember, probably 25 dozen boxes of donuts, boxes of a dozen donuts from Krispy Kreme. And, so yeah, it was just this really, it's going to sound so cheesy, but it was this really come together moment, for a lot of the Auburn family, to help these kids enjoy basketball and enjoy, the hype that was going on. I remember one of the articles, and I'm very sorry for whoever wrote it, and I'm not crediting you, pointing back to saying, these are the kids who they've had struggles with football. They haven't had that big win. Their older brothers and sisters had the 2017 at Georgia and Alabama #1 wins. That was when I was there, and my siblings were at,
Right.
Auburn at this time, and so that hit home with me. I just remember thinking, this is the biggest thing they've got going on, and so I just remember it all kind of coming together and being the crazy environment that it was, and kids were absolutely freezing, but they brought heaters out and tried to make it, as organized as possible. But Kyle, what they say is all that just to see Kentucky. But
I mean, really,
that's all it was. It was just to see Kentucky, I guess.
I guess it was just our Super Bowl or something too, like they were talking about this year. I don't know. Yeah, from my perspective, this was crazy, and this is one of the reasons that I'm so thankful that I've been afforded, given, taken, however you want to say it, the opportunity to do what I do now on a full-time basis. It gives me the freedom to be able to, on a whim, recognize that something incredible is happening, and in a small way, go be a part of it. So I'm literally sitting here in this office Friday. I think all this happened on a Friday, leading up to a Saturday. I think it was a 2 o'clock.
Was it 2? I couldn't remember quite.
No, because they let them in. I'm trying to remember the timeline for this, actually, because it was so cold that morning. I think it was in like the low 30s, if not colder than that, with a wind chill. They were going to let them in earlier than their 2-hour window, and Bruce brought them in, fed the students, and thanked them just to get them back in there. And they had a lot of life even into the morning. And I remember just sitting here, maybe it had to been like 2 o'clock that afternoon. I was like, I think I gotta go. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. This may be a bust. Everybody may be gone by the time I get there, but I'm just hearing things. I'm hearing couches being brought in. I've seen things like you getting involved, shout out to people like Allie Davison, who are just going beyond, to make this a special thing for these students. And so I arrive, and when I tell you that I walk up on a scene, I could hear the students from the parking lot that I parked in. And I didn't park super far away, but I parked far away enough where I shouldn't have been able to hear anybody. And the music, the hype, the craziness, and there was a gymnastics meet the night before too. So there was a amount of people, but this is even after that. The energy that pumped in that place into the wee hours of the morning, I can tell you, I think there are some football weekends in a compact space, yes, not spread across the entire campus, that didn't compare to this in terms of the energy in that room. Like, I dare say in that small compact space, proportionally, might have felt similar to the Iron Bowl of 2013, just because of the anticipation, the fervor with which things had ramped up there. And so we went, and we actually have a video that you can go find here on the network. And I apologize in advance. Very shaky, very I'm just doing what I can to capture this moment. Me walking through the tents and stuff like that. It was absolutely nuts. I have never in my life seen anything like that. The excitement, the passion for one basketball game, a 2-hour basketball game, that's hours, even a day before that, when all of this started. And when they were talking about couches being out there, they're no joke. When they're talking about tents being out there, no joke. What do they call those hammocks, Austin, that they string across?
Eno hammocks.
Eno hammocks, Tons of them. Just every tree had it strung across there. They brought in porta potties, to accommodate for the students that were going to be out there. Yeah. Every 30, not even 30 minutes, probably 15 minutes, somebody was coming in, people like you, bringing in food, hand warmers, supplies, thing like that. Players are out there. I remember walking around with Zepp Jasper for a little bit, and he's just out there hanging out, and more players did that too, but that's just one I remember, and how much that meant to them. Really cool experience. Coach Bruce Pearl doesn't want it to be called Pearlville.
Right. Jungle City, is that right?
Something like that. I that really hasn't, that conversation hasn't come up again because this hasn't happened again. But if it if it were to happen again this year,
Yeah.
boy, would that really kind of solidify the need for, because Bruce even talked about this is going to
Yeah.
need to be addressed for the students in the future, something to, some plan in order to accommodate students that might want to do this again. And
Yeah.
with
Well, if you're not familiar with where this is with Neville Arena and Village Dining and the Village Dormitory, it's a lot of it is concrete and a lot of it is sidewalk, but there's a not massive, but a big grass courtyard pit area that was just total mud by the time, and not from rain, but just cold, dry weather, just mucking up mud everywhere. And so it was just gross. And an unfortunate part of it, there was so much trash kind of left after the game.
The after effects was pretty. That's when Woodstock comparisons started coming in.
Yeah. And so, that's an unfortunate part, but I think some prep needs to happen for that area to kind of be more suitable if things like that were to happen again. And hopefully if it were to happen here in a couple of weeks, that the organization and because I'm not faulting the people of the Auburn athletic department at all, because they had no idea what was coming, and none of us did. But hopefully the kind of joint effort to pull that off will be a little bit more prepared. But I think we have to acknowledge one of the most positive points of all of it is after Allie is, coordinated buying up as many hand warmers as possible and buying as many donuts and food and drinks, and even just Venmoing kids to go get food directly they're out there, is thousands of dollars were still spent to outlive Coach Pearl's initiative for cancer awareness. And so, that is a massive part that I think doesn't get brought up as much, but is something that was a huge, huge reason, or not reason, but effect of all this.
Right.
It's going to be cheesy, and I'll say it again, but that is the quintessential thing when people talk about family, and that you don't experience it until you're in it. And that when you love Auburn, Auburn loves you back. All of that came out kind of in a variety of ways in that weekend. And it was just so fun. It's hard to believe it's been a year since then.
It in some ways it feels super long ago, but in other ways it feels like just yesterday.
Exactly.
I felt like I was rolling in this just haze of energy just emitted from that place. And I walked and I'm like, I have never, for basketball, never in my life seen something like this. And I hope truly, maybe a little bit more organized, we get to experience it again, maybe in the near future.